Welcome, everybody. It's 3:30. It looks like we've got a great number of attendees already dialed in and ready for the webinar today. I'm Reagan Hales. I'm the Vice President of Business Development with the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation. And I'm really happy that we got the chance to partner with Workforce Solutions Panhandle and the Texas Workforce Commission to bring this webinar to businesses in West Texas. I know that we're hearing questions, and Workforce Solutions, the Small Business Development Center, everyone's getting questions from our area businesses. And we're hoping that this webinar today can address some of those issues. So I'm going to turn it over to Trent Morris, who's with Workforce Solutions here in Amarillo. He's going to go over a couple quick things about how the webinar will work, how attendees can interact with the webinar, how you can submit questions, and just also some tips to make the webinar kind of flow a little bit easier for you. Trent?
Well, a couple of things that we wanted to cover this afternoon. And Reagan, thanks for being a great partner with us here at the AEDC. We typically partner on things that are much more fun than this, but this is probably most important what we should be doing right now. We want people to understand that we have a variety of questions that were submitted ahead of time. We've submitted those to the folks in Austin so that they can do some question and answers on those questions that were submitted earlier, either yesterday or the day before. And Jason, thank you for some great questions there. You know who you are. The session will be recorded, and we'll be making it available on all of the partners' websites. And when I say partners, we're talking about the Amarillo Economic Development Corporation, the Small Business Development Center, and Workforce Solutions here in Amarillo. We understand that all of our attendees are muted today, but we could be looking at more events in the future where we might have more audience participation, depending on how productive we feel like these are and how well you receive these events. And we look forward to communicating with you more about that. Just want to mention that we do have, I know Kevin Carter with AEDC is one of the attendees, and Gina Woodward with the Small Business Development Center. We're grateful for your partnership in this, and we couldn't do this without you. And at the end of the meeting, we are going to post a website where Workforce Solutions has a couple of business services staff who you can reach out to with questions, telephone, email. They're here to serve employers. That's their sole focus. So we want to make sure that they are available for you in that regard. So, Reagan, everything going good? Okay. So I think, Marin, we're going to turn it over to you for some comments, and then I think you're going to kick it off to Brad Howard, who's a local employment law attorney.
Absolutely. Thank you, Trent. Thank you, Reagan. First, I'd like to thank everybody and welcome everybody to this virtual town hall meeting. Under these new circumstances, we're having to figure out how to operate virtually, and this is one of the methods that is definitely very, very promising and kind of a best practice for everybody involved. We have a lot of businesses representative, and I appreciate them joining us and posing the questions and getting with us. That being said, I do want to recognize that we have several representatives from many other organizations joining us as well. They include some of our county judges and city officials. I want to thank them for their leadership during these unfortunate times. My name is Marin Rivas. I am the Workforce Development Director with the Panhandle Regional Planning Commission. As some of you know, Workforce Development Division here at PRPC oversees the local Workforce Solutions Panhandle system. This is being done under the leadership of the 25 members of the Panhandle Workforce Development Board and the 7 elected officials serving on the Panhandle Workforce Development Consortium's governing body. I want to thank them for their support as we are having to move very, very quickly in some instances, and their support is definitely very much appreciated. Workforce Solutions, of course, is responsible for delivering workforce development and childcare services in our region. From the onset of these extraordinary circumstances that COVID-19 has brought upon us, the staff at TWC, PRPC, and Workforce Solutions have been coordinating the best possible process to keep the flow of services to the residents of the Panhandle area. We are pleased to report that we've recently developed a new secure website to assist our local businesses and customers to the best of our ability. This secure website allows us to serve people in a secure fashion as the exchange of different information is going through virtual processes. We do have a COVID-19 resource page for employers located on the WSPanhandle.com website. I do want to point that out. Utilizing the new website definitely proves to be essential, as last week we chose to close the office doors to Workforce Solutions to walk-in traffic. However, I do want to emphasize services continue to be delivered by staff, by Trent staff at Workforce Solutions. So don't hesitate reaching out and asking questions and attempting to get those services, those very needed services. What else? So with that, I think it's time to go ahead. I wanted to keep it short. We've got 1 hour, and I want to definitely get to our special guest and hear from them. But first off, our first panelist that I'd like to introduce is Brad Howard. He is a health and employment law attorney with Brown Fortunato here in Amarillo. Brad grew up in Texas and considers Texas his home, but he also works with clients around the country. Brad is board certified in labor law or labor and employment law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization. Please welcome Brad. Brad, are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you for having us here. My name is Brad Howard. I'm here with my colleague, Allison Davis. We're going to socially distance now, but we're both employment lawyers at Brown and Fortunato here in Amarillo. I'd like to thank Workforce Solutions Panhandle for giving us the opportunity to present here for just a few minutes about some of the issues we're seeing during the COVID-19 crisis. Also, a big thanks to Trent Morris, Philip Flores, and their team for inviting us. Also, thank you to Reagan Hales for all of your work in hosting this. To Commissioner Demerson, also to his team of attorneys, Tommy Simmons, Melissa Chapa, and Elsa Ramos. We appreciate all of you for what you do for employers and for your invitation. Just very briefly about what our firm does, then I want to talk for just about 3 minutes about big issues we've seen here in the last 2 weeks involving COVID-19 that might be helpful to all of you employers who are online right now. Our firm is Brown and Fortunato. I'm Brad Howard. I work with Allison Davis. We represent employers all over the Panhandle, all over the state of Texas, but a large number of employers here in the Panhandle, and then in New Mexico and Oklahoma and Colorado. And we work with clients really to address all the difficult decisions, write-ups, terminations, allegations of wrongdoing, leave questions, reductions in force, to work with them on handbooks and other preventative measures, to address EEOC claims, pretty much everything we do with employers. For the last 2 weeks, Allison Davis and I have worked only on COVID-19 issues for employers. And that's been all-consuming for, I'm sure, for all of you who are here online. So our job has been to advise employers on how to address those COVID-19 issues and how to stay out of legal trouble while taking care of your workforce, taking care of your employees, because we're all in this together. So for just about 3 minutes, I'm going to identify for you some of the largest COVID-19 issues that we've seen here at Brown and Fortunato that I'm sure all of you are addressing, and to give you just a few nuggets of advice that might kind of help you in the coming weeks as you're working through the crisis yourself. Some of the big issues that employers like yourselves are addressing include the new legislation, the biggest one being the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act, which allows employees up to 2 weeks of paid leave under certain conditions related to COVID-19. So the issues that we've been addressing with employers are: what triggers that leave? When do you need to give that to an employee? And then what do you require for employees to return to work once they've been on that leave? That law goes into effect today, so we'll be seeing a lot of these issues arise over the next few weeks. And then what do you do when it ends? Well, when the 2 weeks are over, if you have an employee who can't return to work, you've got a lot of options that we've been advising employers about. That would include using the other leave that employees might have. So we're making employers very aware to make sure you understand what your leave policies are and what leave all of your employees have, because even when the 2 weeks are over and you want to keep your workforce intact, you have a lot of options to provide them leave. We've worked with some employers who want to say, no, we're not going to allow you, our employees, to use any voluntary PTO for the next few weeks because we need all of our employees who aren't sick to be at the workplace. We've also worked with a lot of employers who want to address, well, what do I do if my employees need to be gone longer than the 2 weeks and longer than the leave they have under our policies? And that's important because employee leave is the big issue to address right now. The next big issue we're seeing is another law that also goes into effect right away. That's the Family and Medical Leave Expansion Act, which allows certain employees up to an additional 10 weeks of leave. And so we're advising a lot of employers on what triggers that and what you need to get from your employees before they can return to work. In a lot of cases, the advice we're giving is that in this day and age, it's pretty difficult to require an employee to have a doctor's note, so to speak, to return to work, a physical doctor's note like in the old days. So employers need to be creative to get information that satisfies them. It's safe to bring employees back to work, but also allows their employees to return to work. One piece of advice for all employers here, and if you don't have one now, I'd spend tonight or tomorrow morning putting one together, and that is an employer-employee protocol for your workplace. And the first thing would be the social distancing, the requirements there for those employees that you have on site, the sanitization requirements to keep the workplace clean, and then the requirements for when employees shouldn't be there. For example, if they're showing COVID-19 symptoms, if they have a fever, if they have other symptoms. There are just a couple of considerations here that I think as employers you should bear in mind. That is, if you create this written protocol, date it and keep it for down the road, because what's going to happen down the road, what's possibly going to happen, someone might get sick and look at your place of employment and say, I don't think that employer did a good enough job protecting its workforce and the public at large. That's where your employer protocol, dated 4/1/2020, could be extremely helpful for you. The main considerations for having this protocol in place with social distancing and the like is, number one, you want to make sure none of your employees get sick. If they do get sick, you don't want to get sued or someone to claim that you as an employer did something improper. And then the last thing is this, Allison and I've gotten calls from clients around the state. OSHA is becoming very active right now to inspect workplaces to determine whether employers are abiding by social distancing requirements. Is it a safe place to work? They're also looking for whether there's sanitization protocols and the like. So I think it's really important, and we advise employers about this, to put together that protocol now and to date it, and then continually update it depending on what the new criteria or the new facts are. That can help to prevent any liability. Just a couple more issues that we're seeing for employers that probably a lot of people here online are dealing with, and that's the big question of, do I go left at the fork in the road or do I go right? Here's what the fork in the road is. The Paycheck Protection Act, the legislation that was just passed over the weekend, allows a lot of employers options to obtain federal dollars in return for keeping their employees intact, to not lay off or reduce their force significantly. So if you go that route, the idea will be you'll qualify for federal loans, possibly grants, but you're not really going to significantly reduce your workforce. Other employers say, I can't qualify for that, I don't want to. They choose to go right at the fork. They may be looking more at layoffs, furloughs, and there are other options. You really can't go straight. Either you go left or you go right. So we're advising a lot of employers to make sure that you understand the new law and the benefits if you decide to take out that loan, but the obligations that come along with it to protect your workforce. Two other things that we're seeing are challenging employees. What I mean by that is employees who've heard about this new law and they say to their employer, I'd love a 10-day vacation. So I'd like to go ahead and invoke that leave right now. And what a lot of employers are saying is, time out, we've got to make sure that you really qualify for this new leave, number one. And if you don't qualify, whether we can really afford to have you gone now. Those are all issues that employers are dealing with. So kind of in closing, on behalf of Allison Davis and myself, just a few tips that we're telling all employers I'd like to advise you of in this short call. Number one, know the law, including the new laws. If you don't know them, consult with your employment attorney or spend a lot of time studying it, because it's imperative that you understand the new laws. Number two, when you have a request by an employee for leave, or to address their situation, respond rather than react. Employers that react in the heat of the moment when they're upset, I can't afford to have you gone, and they react rather than respond, find themselves in a bad spot down the road. So it's important that you do that. Hand in hand with that, the third tip is be very deliberate in your decision making about employees during this difficult time, because it's going to pass. And when it passes, you and your employees are all going to be in it together again. So it's important to be deliberate in your decision making. The very last thing is to document. We always say that about employer-employee relations with write-ups and things, to document. It's really important to do that here during the COVID-19 crisis. If you make an employment decision about somebody, maybe in retrospect it won't be the perfect decision, but if it's a decision that you made in good faith to take care of your company while also trying to balance the interest of your employees, and you document your thinking and your decision making there, that can provide you a lot of protection down the road. So kind of in conclusion, we're all in this together. We're all going to get through this together. And the main thing is to understand the law, appreciate your employees, work with them, but know your rights if you need to make those difficult decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Next, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our special guest. Marin Demerson serves as the commissioner representing employers for the Texas Workforce Commission. Governor Greg Abbott appointed him to the 3-member commission on August 20th of 2019. Prior to this appointment, Marin served as the director of the Office of Employer Initiatives at the Texas Workforce Commission. In this position, he provided leadership and direction to engage employers, business organizations, and economic development community in the ongoing development of a customer-focused, market-driven workforce system in Texas. Prior to that, he's also served under Governor Rick Perry as a senior advisor. Marin has worked with us quite a long time, and he's very knowledgeable. Him and his staff do a wonderful job. I appreciate and thank you for joining us and allowing us to host this virtual town hall meeting. All of your efforts, the efforts of your legal team. So I'll turn it over to you, Marin. Thank you.
Good, Marin. Thank you so much for the invitation, and just want to thank Reagan, Marin, Trent, Brad, Allison, all of you guys for what you're doing, and for your continued dedication, the leadership that you're exhibiting at this time. We don't take it for granted, and we really appreciate it. Workforce Solutions Panhandle and Marin, those are the boots on the ground for that area. And so in these interesting times, companies, they're experiencing some hiring in some cases and layoffs on the other side. And so very, very interesting time. But Marin and his team are very important partners and resources for you. And I want to overemphasize that point to really utilize that office, because they want to be there to help in big ways. And so on behalf of Governor Abbott and myself, let me just say thanks to all of you guys that are on this call, not only for your leadership and your investment in the state, the small businesses, the businesses that are making these investments. We truly appreciate that. You guys are the ones that are hiring our Texas citizens, and we thank you for what you're doing, not only today, which is very important, but what you've done always, and that's to strictly, simply take care of business. You've done that day in and day out, and we truly appreciate it. At this critical time at the Workforce Commission, we're going to be there for you, doing what we can, and so we're delighted to be on this call to answer any questions that we have. As been mentioned, I have 4 dynamic attorneys on our staff here. Tommy Simmons, who's with me, employment law attorneys, Melissa Chapa, who's on the line, Elsa Ramos as well, and then Mario Hernandez, who's on the team, but over answering those hotline calls even today. These guys have been working for the past couple of weeks, day in and day out, answering calls of Texas employers and hosting virtual meetings so that we can ensure that employers have answers to the questions that they have. And so there's a frequently asked question document that we have that we're going to make sure that Marin has, Reagan, that you guys have to get out to the individuals on this call and others that might want to have access to that information. But it highlights a lot of the frequently asked questions that we're receiving on a daily basis as well. I want to quickly move to the question and answers. And so I'll just summarize some of the things that Governor Abbott's been doing and some of the highlights here at the state level. We moved real quick to move the waiting period, moving that from 1 week is what was required. We immediately waived that. Governor Abbott waived that. And here at the Workforce Commission, we waived the unemployment insurance work search requirement as well. That was waived right away. And then the governor had requested a designation from SBA for the Economic Injuries Disaster Loan Program, and that was granted. And of course, those at the local level, the Small Business Administration has that program ongoing. And I know we have the governor's office on the line on this call meeting as well, and they may speak to some of the things that are happening in that area as well. But one program before I close out, I'd like us to pay attention to is the Shared Work Program. That's one that we want you to learn about. That's simply an opportunity and as an alternative to layoffs that we have. And so that's a program where you may be receiving partial UI benefits, and on the other end, the company's keeping an individual hired in that area. And at the local level, Marin and his team are very aware of how that program works. And Tommy and our guys here, Melissa, Elsa, and Mario, will get us to the proper sources in regards to handling that question as well. A number of calls that have come into the agency. You've heard something to the fact of 1.7 million calls in one day. I mean, unprecedented time frames. And what we're dealing with here, no one could have anticipated, but we're doing our best to handle that. And thanks to what's happening locally and here at the state level, where we've expanded the bandwidth, where we're bringing in new employees, trying to answer all those questions that our employers have. And my colleagues, Commissioner Alvarez on the labor side is doing the same thing with employees. And then our chairman, Brian Daniels, of course, is serving the public in that regard. But Governor Abbott's leadership, he's done some things, alcoholic beverages that are allowed in that area, allowing businesses to sell untraditional products. And so we've been very innovative in our approaches and taking a very structured approach to this, with even that strike force, a team that's been put together as well. But representing the employers of the state here, my goal and role is to make sure that we are answering questions that employers have. And as I think Brad kind of alluded to, if we're able to come out of this, we want to be really ready to roll in that aspect. But we know what we're dealing with today, and a lot of our employers, where the boots are on the ground, where the rubber meets the road, are dealing with situations that they've not had to deal with ever before. And so we want to be there to answer all of those questions. And so again, thank you guys for hosting this. Thank you for what you're doing in your respective communities, and know that we here at the state level stand ready to assist in any way we can to try to make a difference in that regard. And so I'll turn it back over so that we can move to the Q&A at that appropriate time, so that we can get some of those questions answered that so many of you guys might have. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Commissioner. I think on the Q&A, Trent, were you going to assist with Trent Morris is our director over at Workforce Solutions Panhandle. So I'll turn it over to Trent.
Yes, so we have submitted about 10 questions, and I think, Tommy, hopefully you have those in front of you. Wasn't sure how you wanted to go about reviewing those questions, or if you want me to list them off and you can start answering. It's your call on that one.
Well, Tommy and I are handling that. I know we had the governor's office on the line as well. I want to make sure that we are not losing them out. Kelly's on that call, and that may have been already handled. And so I want to make sure that that's appropriate. And if not, then we'll go right to it.
Well, I just want to say that I'm here and I can hear you. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Sure. Well, look, I'm standing by for questions that you think are appropriate for the small business advocate to answer. I know we have experts in employment and TWC issues. I'm happy to answer anything to do with the Office of the Governor or other resources for small business. I can speak to that.
Thank you, Kelly. And Kelly, actually, the small business advocate in the governor's office, and I'm glad that they were able to join us, and just want the individuals on the call to know that that office is available as well. And so I'll quickly read some of the questions, and Tommy and I are here in the office, and we're doing our best to be away from each other and in line with the guidelines there. And so the first question said, if we utilize the TWC shared work plan, will this impact our ability to participate in any of the CARES Act payroll protection programs?
Yes, and on that question, we asked our Director of Unemployment Insurance Division, Mr. Clay Cole, and his staff, and this is the answer that they gave us. We do not know if participating in TWC shared work program will impact an employer's ability to participate in the Paycheck Protection Program. That program, as it is administered by the Small Business Administration, and we have referred employers who have inquired if it would affect them to that agency. I'll just throw my 2 cents worth into the mix here. The shared work plan, of course, is for people who have had partial reductions of their work schedules between 10 and 40%. So they're working between 10 and 40% fewer hours than normal. And if they are participating in a shared work plan with TWC and the employer, then they can get a corresponding percentage of their unemployment benefits in addition to the regular wages. And that way they have more money at the end of each week than if they were totally unemployed. The Paycheck Protection Program, on the contrary, is designed for reimbursement of people's wages all the way up to their full regular wage amount through a loan that would be available and administered by the Small Business Administration. It would appear that if they are achieving income replacement through the Paycheck Protection Program, then that would be in substitution of the shared work plan. The shared work plan would actually pay less than the Paycheck Protection Program. So all of this will await guidance from our oversight agency, which is the U.S. Department of Labor, as to what effect on shared work plan benefits this Small Business Administration program would have. So basically stay tuned, and any word on that will be published as soon as it is available on the TWC website.
Okay. So second question, as activity dwindles and in some cases comes to a halt, we want to make sure our employees are receiving 40 hours of pay. What is the best way to supplement these wages? If we pay some and elect to utilize a plan like the shared work plan, are there record-keeping guidelines?
On this question, we also asked for input from the Unemployment Insurance Division Director, and he and his staff told us, with respect to the first question, the shared work program pays them their unemployment equivalent of the 10 to 40% reduction in hours. It does not cover their normal pay for those hours. As I noted before, full recovery of the normal pay would be something that could be handled under the Paycheck Protection Act administered by the Small Business Administration. The second question is, if we pay some and elect to utilize a plan like the shared work plan, are there record-keeping guidelines? Well, yes, there would be. The shared work plan is administered in conjunction with the TWC Unemployment Insurance Division, and the record-keeping requirements will be communicated to any participant in that plan. What our division director said on that is all weekly payments made to employees on a shared work plan are viewable by the employer under their plan. So that part of the record keeping is handled by the TWC, and any employer utilizing the unemployment benefit services online can view the payments made to the shared work plan participants. I hope that answers that question.
It kind of alludes over to the third question. What record keeping do you suggest during this time? Should we establish separate bank accounts, payroll codes in our software?
That's a little bit of a question outside the normal territory of the Texas Workforce Commission. I can suggest that they use whatever system would allow them to fully account for all hours actually worked and all wage payments made, because that is something that is normally required under U.S. Department of Labor Wage and Hour Regulation 29 CFR 516.2. And as to separate bank accounts, payroll codes in our software, different software, payroll accounting software programs have different protocols. So I would say contact your payroll software vendor for advice on that.
So the next question says, I emailed a mass claim for our employees last week per your website. I know you guys are totally overwhelmed, but we'll be getting a notification that you received the mass claim. How long is your expectation before they will be processed and payments will go out to our employees we had to lay off.
All right. We also received a helpful answer from Mr. Cole, the Division Director of UI Division. And he said, with respect to the first question, will we be getting a notification that you received the mass claim? Due to the large volume of requests we are receiving, the program is not sending out confirmations on receipt. We are looking at adding an automated message when a mass claim is received. And as to the second question, how long is your expectation before they will be processed and payments will go out to our employees we had to lay off? The response from UI Division is the turnaround time for the mass claim to be processed is 7 days. When the claims are set up, they are backdated to the date of separation, and filing information is then sent out to the employees for them to file for payment.
It's 7 days there, and just know that the amount of calls that I mentioned originally in claims being filed is unprecedented, and so they're working hard day in and day out. Melissa, anything you want to add to any of the things that we've said thus far?
Yes. Hi, Melissa Chapa here. I just wanted to add in for shared work. A lot of folks are wondering if I temporarily cut an employee's salary, could we work with the shared work program? The short answer is no. Shared work is for a reduction in hours, not a reduction in pay. So if they're working the same schedule and experiencing a salary reduction, shared work would not be an option for those employees.
Good. Thank you. So the next question says, will extra small businesses receive help? We own a small pest control business and a friend owns a boutique. We only have one working and our friend has only one other employee besides herself. We need help paying our bills during this time. If we receive any money, will it turn into a grant if we use it to pay overhead?
What I would say on that is I would suggest that they look for information relating to Section 2102 of the CARES Act, which is the section of the CARES Act, HR 748, that addresses temporary unemployment assistance for self-employed individuals, sole proprietors, independent contractors, and other people who may not qualify for regular unemployment benefits. It sounds like these very small businesses, they might be micro businesses with entrepreneurs, sole proprietors, small business owners. If they don't qualify for regular unemployment benefits, they should definitely look for assistance under Section 2102 of the CARES Act. And as soon as we get guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor on that, we will publish it on our website.
So it's Section 2102, HR 748 for information in that regard. The next question said, would like more examples and clarification on shared work plans. We have employee layoffs due to significant slowdown. Some days we have nothing to do. Should we have a plan in place in case we do see business pick up at sometime? What is your recommendation there?
Yes, and Mr. Cole's response on that, the division director of UI Division, is I would not recommend filing a shared work plan until employees are actually scheduled to return back to work and working reduced hours. If you have an approved plan on file that you are not using, the participants that you've added to the plan are blocked from using WEB payment options, because signing up for shared work is indicating the employer would be filing the reduced hours for their employees, and they would have no need to have access to the payment request. So if the shared work plan is unavailable due to the way the employer has structured hours reductions, the employer can certainly contact TWC or a local workforce solutions center they do business with and ask them about whether any of their affected employees might qualify for regular unemployment benefits on an individual basis. And if anybody would like to add something to that, Melissa, I don't know if you would like to add something to that or not, but that's what I would say for that shared work plan question.
Okay. So under the CARES Act, sole proprietors are now eligible for unemployment on themselves. do we know yet what the rules are for unemployment versus a SBA loan?
Well, we don't yet know what the rules are for unemployment, other than we have heard that kind of supplementary assistance will be available for up to 39 weeks under the federal program. But the rules on that have yet to be issued by the Department of Labor. They have told the states that they are working as fast as they can to issue guidance. As soon as we have guidance on that from DOL, we will be publishing it to the claimants and job seekers portion of our website.
Good. And then the next question says, the TWC website indicates that they are upgrading our system to adapt to the new legislation, which they are. Should self-employed individuals try and apply now or wait until the system is updated?
Y'all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, I may have been on mute somehow, but in any event, my answer to this last question, the TWC website indicates that they are upgrading our system to adapt to the new legislation. Should self-employed individuals try and apply now or wait until the system is updated? We don't have a response on that from our UI division director, but my answer would be no. There would be no way to file a claim for the self-employed individuals under Section 2102 of the CARES Act until the Department of Labor gives us the go-ahead to implement it, and our IT department has successfully reprogrammed our system to handle that kind of claim. Both of those units are working as fast as they can to finish that process, and I know that they have every intention of doing that as soon as possible, because the sooner we turn that on, the sooner those federal benefits will be getting to our Texas citizens.
And so I'm going to move to the Q&A that have been submitted as well. And so we have one from an anonymous attendee. It says, I was wondering if you were going to discuss unemployment for the self-employed and any information on small businesses that have been closed.
Well, yes, the question that we just now addressed about self-employed individuals trying to apply now or wait, the legislation under the CARES Act definitely covers that, but we need to wait until the Department of Labor has given us guidance, and we have implemented that guidance and successfully reprogrammed the system to accept claims and process them for payment. So we've been told by our UI division that that process will probably be a couple of weeks, but I know that they are working on it as quickly as they possibly can. It's a matter of guidance from the Department of Labor and the hardware and redesigning the system to accommodate those claims, but they are working as fast as they can on it.
All right, question from Steve. Do employees that are not sick or caring for children or another adult due to COVID, but laid off due to loss of job, qualify for pay from an employer?
Well, for that employer, I would suggest looking at the U.S. Department of Labor guidance for the family-friendly COVID Coronavirus Relief Act. They have it online. Look for their press release dated March 24th, 2020. They have links to all the guidance. And in fact, if you click on the link on the Department of Labor homepage at dol.gov, it will take you directly to the links for their FFCRA guidance for employers on that. And those are very useful documents. They've got one for employees, one for employers, and one that is a frequently asked questions page. And I don't know if Brad Howard has anything additional he would like to throw in on that. Brad, are you still on the call?
Still here. I'm going to have Allison Davis address that. Thank you.
Very good.
Hi, thank you. So we've actually been dealing with this question quite a lot over the last couple of weeks. The Families First Act that has the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act as a section, it only has 6 very specific reasons for which an employee can take paid sick leave. None of those deal with an employee who has been laid off. So it's very different to be laid off than to be entitled to the paid sick leave. This Paid Sick Leave Act is supposed to address the first basically 2 work weeks, 10 days of leave that an employee might need to take if that employee is able to work, generally able to work. They still have a job, there's still work being done, but the employee needs leave for very specific reasons. So that is for, the employee subject to a quarantine or isolation order. They've been told by a healthcare provider to self-quarantine. They're experiencing symptoms of COVID-19, or they're caring for someone who is subject to isolation or quarantine orders. And then they're caring for a minor child whose school or daycare is closed, or they're experiencing symptoms of another substantially similar condition as specified by HHS. We don't have those conditions yet, but it's really just those 6 specific reasons that an employee could get paid sick leave. If an employer is closing down because of a lack of work, or they're laying employees off, none of those reasons come into play at all.
Thank you, Allison. So we're going to try to make sure we get as many questions as possible. Where can we find what laws are current for this situation?
Commissioner Demerson, could I just answer that real quickly from a local perspective? We have gathered a lot of resources from several websites, including the Texas Workforce Commission, the Emerald Economic Development Corporation, the Small Business Development Center, and with Workforce Solutions. And so we've aggregated that information at wspanhandle.com. And then there's a COVID-19 for employers. So we hope that our local employers will utilize that resource as one of the avenues for current information there.
And Trent, that was wspanhandle.com, correct?
Yes, sir. wspanhandle.com. And then there's a COVID-19 top navigation bar, and you'll see that. And we'll try to display that at the end of the webinar as well.
All right, fantastic. For Roseanne, we have 3 1099 seasonal employees. We were designated non-essential yesterday and will shutter as required and refund our guests for the turnkey hunting season. How can we assist them if we cannot afford to pay what they would normally make?
I would say that would be addressed under the CARES Act. That sounds like something that those individuals may potentially qualify under the CARES Act. They should certainly contact the TWC, and on the every TWC website page, there's a red bar across the top with hot links to COVID-19 related information for job seekers and employers and workforce partners. So click on that for the latest, and also the website previously given at wspanhandle.com.
Yeah, and Marin, you guys may be able to assist with that as well, big time there. From Lori, it says, thank you for having this meeting. Can you speak to any differences for nonprofit organization, 501c3, or those that are, or are those the same just for all small businesses?
Nonprofit organizations, 501c3. Well, we have, of course, all kinds of employers in the unemployment compensation system here in Texas, including nonprofit employers. Sometimes they're reimbursing employers, sometimes they pay unemployment tax. But there's a difference in treatment of chargebacks from unemployment benefits between reimbursing employers and taxed employers. I think that's what this question is about. I'm not sure, but under the law, if a work separation is the result of the COVID-19 natural disaster, our agency is protecting those employers' accounts. For reimbursing employers, it's slightly different though. They don't normally get chargeback protection. However, if you look at section 2103 of the CARES Act, that section allows states to elect to protect from reimbursement liability the accounts of reimbursing employers. So that's something that our agency still needs to look on after we receive guidance from the U.S. Department of Labor about that. But hopefully we would take advantage of that and allow some relief for a lot of those hard-pressed 501c3s. I know a lot of them, especially the ones who are charitable organizations, they would need some kind of relief.
Good. So can you please speak to how this affects contract workers?
Well, yes, contract workers who may not normally qualify for regular unemployment insurance, they are the ones who are envisioned as being helped by the CARES Act, Section 2102, where sole proprietors and entrepreneurs and self-employed individuals are potentially eligible for unemployment assistance under the pandemic relief. So look at Section 2102. Again, that depends upon guidance from our oversight agency, the U.S. Department of Labor. They're working on that as soon as possible. As soon as it becomes available, we will post the information on our website.
Good. All right. And so there's a question right above. How do we begin once our board of directors sees that this is the direction we're going for a loan? And do we just contact our local bank to get started with the application? And so I think somebody from the SBDC was on the call as well. And so that would probably be a good source. I believe the Small Business Development Center and the SBA, and then the local, that they would tie into the local loans that are available through this program. Kelly, anything on your side? If not, I'll quickly move here. My wife is a hairdresser, so she is self-employed. Does she qualify for unemployment? There are thousands of people that work for themselves in the same situation.
Yes, and that would be addressed under Section 2102 of the CARES Act. Once that program becomes implementable on the TWC side, we will post information as to how those affected workers can take advantage of the CARES Act unemployment assistance.
If we decide to lay off employees, how do they file for unemployment?
They would basically go to the TWC website at twc.texas.gov, and there is a special portal devoted to job seekers and employees. Click on that, and one of the links is how do I file for unemployment benefits, and follow the steps outlined on that page.
Good. And the next, can you explain which expenses of the business the loan covers? And again, I'm assuming that's probably the SBA loan or the economic disaster loan program that's been recently put out. And so the Small Business Development Center can probably answer that question. There's a 1, 2, 3.
This is Kelly here. Sorry to interrupt you. If
go
you
for it.
want me to speak for 2 seconds on that, I can.
Go
Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Sure. Okay, so 2 things. I'll go back to a number of your inquirers were self-employed people, sole proprietors and so on. They are eligible to apply for the economic injury loans with the SBA. I'm hearing that not only are they eligible, but when they apply, if they tick the box saying they're interested in the $10,000 advance, then they will get that within about 3 days of their application. And so they can keep that $10,000. It's essentially forgivable, and they don't have to take the loan if they're approved. And even if they're declined, they still get to keep that $10,000. So the word is that all those people who are eligible to apply for those loans should apply for it, even if it's only just to get that $10,000 advance.
Yeah. Kelly, thank you.
And then if you just remind me what that most recent question was.
No, that's it. It was the other one was, can you explain which expenses of the business the loan covers?
Yes, it covers the key overheads of the business, including accounts payable in certain circumstances. And there's a lot of detail up there on the SBA website, but it's a broad view on general overheads and key expenses.
All right, thank you so much, Kelly. All right, so the next one, our child care is within a church that is closed due to COVID-19, and we're considered nonprofit as well. Is the CARE Act covering nonprofits for their employees' pay in the loan?
That sounds like it might be covered under the Paycheck Protection Act. which would be administered not by TWC, but by the Small Business Administration, as we understand it.
Yes, actually, the payroll protection program is also, I think it's actually going to be directly administered by lenders, 7A lenders.
Very
So
good.
for companies who want to apply for that, they go into their 7A lender, their nearest one. The formal guidance is not out yet. It'll be out on Friday. And so those 7A lenders themselves don't actually know everything just yet. But that program is going to be administered by the banks and lenders, including credit unions.
Very nice.
So if we had 9 employees and we furloughed 7 of them, we would need to apply for the SBA loan as opposed to the PPP, correct? What's the PPP?
The Paycheck Protection Act.
Okay.
I think that's meant to be PPA.
Okay.
But or Paycheck Protection Program. So yes, that's right. The Paycheck Protection Program is for sustaining and maintaining employment. But if people have been furloughed, they're no longer working for pay, they would be considered unemployed, and they would have to look to some other program. They might qualify for the mass claims, or but that would require, come to think of it, at least 10 affected employees, or they could file individual unemployment claims with TWC.
And I was just saying in the chat box, there's a number of different comments coming on the chat box as well. And so that's some good information that folks are sharing. And so if you have an opportunity, make sure that you view the chat box as well. It says, if I have an employee who is out per doctor's order because he is high risk due to age, he is not sick, does he qualify for the Paid Leave Act?
It sounds like they probably would if they're out based on the advice of a medical health professional. Then yes, I believe that is covered. Brad, do you or Allison have anything to add about that from your clients?
Yes, I do. Actually, that falls under the Emergency Paid Sick Leave Act. If this employee has been advised by a healthcare practitioner to self-isolate, then that qualifies as one of the reasons for emergency paid sick leave.
Very good. Very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. Does the PPP cover independent contractors pay? I'm an optometrist and I have 5 employees, but I also employ another optometrist as an independent contractor.
I believe the answer to that would be yes, under Section 2102 of the CARES Act. And once again, information on that will be available as soon as we are given the clearance from the U.S. Department of Labor.
Good. And so on the chat box, eventually, Reagan, or you guys will open that up, I guess, or it may be just for panelists at this particular point, but good information on the chat box, and we'll make sure that you guys have access to all of that information as well. It says, are we going to have a note from the city to be able to work? It's a different kind of question. Are we going to have a note from the city to be able to work? And I guess that's probably essential workers and
Yes,
what's done from
essential
that standpoint. So.
Yeah.
Could I address that? Can I address that for just 1 second?
Sure, Brad, go ahead.
Sure. I think what that's getting at is the various shelter-in-place
Yes.
restrictions, including the one in Amarillo and Canyon that just went into effect. And the understanding I've got is that employees are not required to have a letter to say they're essential, and the police aren't pulling people over to ask that question. But if they do pull you over for some other reason, they can inquire about that. What we're advising employers to do is make sure your employees have a business card showing they work, if they have that, to show they work at your business, which is considered essential. Or what we've done is help a lot of employers just write a letter that all of their employees have in their glove compartment in their car. If it ever becomes an issue, they can pull out the letter to demonstrate they're an essential employee under the new shelter-in-place rules.
Thank you, Brad. Can self-employed qualify under the DUA for unemployment benefits?
Oh, disaster unemployment assistance, it looks like, is what that refers to. And we have no word on that from the U.S. Department of Labor yet, but that is a possibility under the current situation because it has been a declared disaster. That would require federal action, federal authorization.
All right. Where can we find info on keeping employees safe from the COVID-19 in the construction field? And so, Trent, you guys may have something with that or add that, Marin.
Yeah, we'll look at our website and see if we have information like that. If not, we'll search for it and try to post it there in that convenient location.
And then Tommy just mentioned OSHA.gov may be a good site for that as well.
They've got a really great brochure at OSHA.gov. Go to that website, and COVID-19 information pops up as the top link. Follow that, and it's a really good brochure for workplace safety in the COVID-19 era.
A small tire shop, we had to close shop this week, and now our 3 employees out of work. Do I qualify for help myself and for them?
It sounds like that person probably would, assuming that they are, that the business, the tire shop, is a corporation or an LLC. Presumably, they're employed by their corporate entity, and they've been reporting wages on themselves and paying taxes on those wages. They would be in the system. They could file an unemployment claim as well, just for regular unemployment insurance. But if it's a sole proprietorship, then they would have to wait until we get the guidance from the Department of Labor regarding Section 2102 of the CARES Act.
All right, and Regina, go ahead, Trent.
Mr. Simmons, I'm just curious. We hear a lot about a $600 additional on top of state benefits for unemployment insurance. Can you talk about that at all in terms of where we're at with that?
Yes, that's a great question. We have had just an overwhelming number of inquiries about that. That's Section 2104 of the CARES Act, HR 748. Look at Section 2104. If you go to, you can find the full text of the bill in very nice, readable, searchable text format at congress.gov. And then put HR 748 into the search field. Look at the enrolled version of the bill. It's a very nice, web-page document with a clickable link to all of the sections. Click on the link for Section 2104, and you go straight to it. And basically, subsection B talks about the additional supplementary $600 payment. Now, what that refers to is the temporary supplemental pandemic emergency unemployment compensation that is available through July 31st of this year. It's time limited, so as soon as TWC works out the program parameters with the U.S. Department of Labor, that can start going through as well. And what will happen is that the $600 will be paid to anybody who files a valid weekly unemployment claim. Exactly how the payments will be processed, that's still up in the air. That will await TW's Department of Labor guidance, because we have to know whether there will be 2 payments, the weekly benefit amount and the $600, or 1 payment, which will be a combined weekly benefit amount plus the $600. But that will be available as essentially a federal grant for each week that a claimant files a valid weekly benefit claim.
Do you see this potentially affecting the shared work strategy, where it might be more appropriate to lay off an individual 100% with this additional $600 than it would be to do the partially, lay them off partially or reduce their hours? Is that something we need to be thinking about, or is that just too difficult to determine right now?
That's too difficult to determine right now under the available federal guidance from DOL. But we would also want to be careful about getting into the area of, advising businesses to, like adjust their workforce strategies to where they're laying people off who are needed versus giving them as many hours as possible as are available. That would get into an area of financial strategy that would probably be inappropriate for the state agency administering the unemployment program to do. That would be more of a strategy for CPAs and tax advisors and so on. Officially, our agency's position is we want as many people as possible to be working as many hours as possible. strategies to maximize the money from the feds, that's in my opinion, that is outside the parameters of our agency.
Okay. So Trent, I'm going to get to this one. It says, if an employer is going to lay off, should they contact Workforce Solutions or just have the employee contact Workforce? Marin, you want to weigh in on that one? Or? So it says, if an employer is going to lay off, should they contact Workforce Solutions or just have the employee contact Workforce?
I think it's always appropriate to give us a call and discuss it. There is a mass claim process, which is simplified process for all of the affected workers, where all of the affected workers are listed on a spreadsheet with the detailed information needed to process a claim. That gets submitted once. In essence, that employer would be filing the claim for all of their affected employees at once for large layoffs. But definitely reach out to us and we can definitely talk about it and see which is the best process for you.
Okay, and we can go on for a little bit longer. I know it's hitting upon the time of 4:30. I didn't even know that time has gone so quick or so. And we don't mind taking a couple of more questions if you guys don't mind. We'll do that. We want to try to hit as much as we can. And so, but I want to be respectful of the panelists and be respectful of the organization as well. So you guys let me know.
Yeah, 2 more questions. How about, please?
Okay. All right. It says, if we choose to close one of our divisions and furlough that division, if some employees from that said division can work a few hours remotely, can they be paid for the hours worked, non-exempt, but still be considered furloughed? So if we choose to close one of the divisions and furlough that division, if some employees from that said division can work a few hours remotely, can they be paid for the hours worked, non-exempt, but still be considered furloughed?
My answer would be yes. I don't see any problem with that. It's important to remember that the concept of furlough is just semantically very similar to the concept of a temporary layoff. In both cases, the employer and the employees envision some kind of return to work date. And with a temporary layoff, as with a furlough, it can be partial or total. So if somebody is partially laid off, they might be able to file a partial unemployment benefit claim. And the fact that they are working remotely, some available hours that the company has for them to do by telecommuting, that's to be encouraged. Just remember to report the work and earnings on each weekly claim certification, and the TWC will take care of whatever needs to happen with adjusting the benefit amount. But yes, that's possible.
Okay. As far as the CARE Act goes, healthcare providers are not eligible for the 2 weeks emergency sick pay. Does that include surgery centers?
Oh, well, personally, I think that's beyond my expertise. I would welcome hearing any thoughts from anybody who has an opinion on that. Brad or Allison, have you all come across that?
We have Brad Howard here. So under that particular aspect of the law, it's not across the board to say healthcare providers are exempt. It's a very specific inquiry based on the kind of business that you are. And then what Allison and I are discussing with a lot of employers is that certain employees in a certain workforce may qualify for the exemption. The employer can exempt some of them, but it's not across the board. And there's not any DOL guidance that's specific to this point. But the safer thing is for anybody that qualifies as a healthcare provider employer to get legal advice for a plan on implementing that. And I'm going to ask Allison just to jump in for a second more.
I might actually add one more thing to that. We actually have seen some DOL guidance urging employers to use that exemption sparingly. So the way that we have been advising our clients is to make that decision on a case-by-case basis, but of course in a non-discriminatory manner. So when you're considering who is essential for your workforce, that would be definitely one aspect of the decision. But then if you have somebody who's, say, a physician, and you know physicians you are going to need to exempt, but say you have 5 and you can get by with 4, then perhaps you might let somebody take paid sick leave, whoever asks first, but you wouldn't necessarily say, we're going to exempt all of our physicians or all of our pharmacists or whoever that is. It should really be based pretty sparingly, used pretty sparingly, and based on what you need to protect your essential functions of that business.
Thank you. I'm going to get to these last two real quick. Says when we laid off our employees, they were told that they were eligible for rehire. If we have an employee we choose not to rehire, is there anything specific we need to do? Melissa, you want to hit that?
Sure. So if you
And so Melissa's mic is not working.
Okay, yes. There's nothing specific that the employer needs to do, but from a practical standpoint, they should be as open and transparent with the employee as possible. Communication is always a good thing. And Melissa, I think you're on the call now.
It's not working.
It's okay. It may not be working right now, but no, Texas law does not require a specific notice to the employee in that situation, but we would encourage it.
All right. So I think we're in our time right now. And so I think Reagan is hitting us with a few things. And so Trent, Mary, you guys may want to knock it out.
Commissioner Demerson, I just had a couple of things I want to say, and then Marin's going to close us out. Okay. We're going to do our best to display on your screen our website with the reference material. Also, in the spirit of equal opportunity, I wanted to mention that there's another employment law attorney in Amarillo who's having a webinar tomorrow. Her name is Vicki Wilmarth. She has the event scheduled from 9 to 10, and she welcomed anybody to join that. So VickiWilmarth.com if you wanted to participate in that. And then we'll look at hosting some more events like this. I know there's some information from the Small Business Development Center that we need to certainly get out. I know Gina Woodward locally here would welcome that. So Marin, I'm going to turn it over to you to close us out, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Trent. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank everybody for joining us in this virtual town hall meeting. Hopefully everybody found it beneficial. There's lots of good information. There's still lots of information coming down from the different entities. So be definitely aware of checking those different resource sites to get additional information, and don't hesitate reaching out to us to help you in your needs. I'd like to thank all of our partners. Reagan, appreciate you coordinating and helping us with this. Trent's always been an amazing person to work with. He's done a great job with Workforce Solutions, and I look forward to continuing to work with him. Commissioner Demerson, especially, I'd like to thank you and your team, Tommy and Melissa, for contributing to our discussion and helping our local employers at least begin to get some information and start to peel the onion. There's going to be several layers as we continue to get additional guidance, and things are changing. The dynamics of this COVID-19 are ever so changing and can quickly change. So please definitely stay tuned, and we'll do our best to provide resources to our job seekers and especially our employers. Our employers are definitely our number one priority, as without them, our economy and everybody's livelihood could cease to exist. Right now, we have lots of businesses that have closed. Patience is definitely going to be needed. Look at filing claims. UI unemployment system is available online 24/7. So I would recommend, if you're trying to file for unemployment, don't do it during the day. Wait till off-peak hours if you need to. And we'll do our best to continue working on the different systems and building the resources that everybody needs to get past this. And we will get past this. I'm impressed every day as I see different groups of people coming together and addressing and tackling this unseen hazard to everybody's livelihood, and we'll get past it. Thank y'all. I appreciate it. And with that, we'll go ahead and close this meeting. I hope to try to go through, and Reagan, I don't know if it's possible, but if there's a way to kind of put those Q&As out there. We'd love to put that on our resource page for those that we can answer. That way folks have a place to go and get those Q&As.
Absolutely. We've had a lot of people ask if this webinar is going to be recorded, and it is recorded. I think Workforce Solutions is going to have this webinar on their website, and the Amarillo EDC also has a business resources website. That's texpanhandlecovid19.com. So just txpanhandlecovid19.com, where we have a lot of different federal, state, and local resources out there. And we'll make sure there's a link to this webinar available. And I know collectively we'll all work together to try to get more of these questions out there. So check out Facebook pages. Stay tuned for any information. We'll try to get this information out to all of you guys as soon as we can.
Thank you guys again for the opportunity. Any unanswered questions, get them to us, and we'd like to answer those. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Y'all be safe.
Bye-bye.